Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bollywood Uncovered with me, Haroon Rashid. This is a podcast series where I've come to Mumbai to find out what it really takes to be a Bollywood star in 2020. Each week I'm meeting different people who have a role to play in the relevance of a star, in the significance of even the star system in Bollywood, and each one of them hold a lot of power. Today's episode is called Do Reviews Matter? And as you've guessed, it's with three of my favourite film critics in Mumbai, and I was really keen to have the three of you here. So welcome, guys. I have Ankur Pathak, who is the entertainment editor of Huffington Post India. I have Rajeev Masand, entertainment editor of CNN News 18. And I have film companions, not a movie reviewer, Sucharita Tyagi. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Tell me first, each of you, Ankur, do reviews matter?
In certain cases, they certainly do. I mean, there are films that we all know which are like fully critic-proof. So no matter, how many ratings you give or how much you trash it. Sucharita famously had a very critical review of Kabir Singh.
Don't say...
I thought I'll just start on a comfortable note, Sucharita.
So much PTSD.
Triggering. It wouldn't matter, how much we unpack the social commentary or the problematic themes in a film. People will still go watch one way or the other, right? Through sheer force of star power or even the theme and the subject matter of the film. But in the smaller films or in, the slightly lower budget independent movies, I think reviews can actually push and generate a discourse around a movie that could, inspire a lot more people to go check it out.
I think they used to. I think that there's too many critics around. Everyone's a critic. A WhatsApp opinion is a critical review of your friend, and you'd rather trust your friend to know your taste better than a critic. I think that I agree with Ankur completely when he says that for the larger films, I think no one. The trailer helps you make up your mind about whether you want to watch a film or not. With the smaller films, I think that you can push or sort of shed a light on films that don't have the marketing budget and the muscle to create the noise and to create that trailer that everyone will watch.
When this Kabir Singh came out, we were like, I mean, it's not a very good film and we're going to be very honest in our opinion of it. और क्या वर्ल्ड कप भी चल रहा है तो कौन आएगा घर से बाहर देखने के लिए और इतने लोग आए उस पिक्चर को देखने के लिए. It was whatever, and but like to what Ankur is also saying, it also starts a discourse, a conversation that over the last few years I've never seen that kind of conversation and that kind of discourse, and it can be quite traumatic for somebody like me who's got a different opinion than the mass. And even Rajeev got trolled so badly for that one. I think both Rajeev and me got this beautiful moniker called Parasite, which whatever, I'm not opposed to.
Kinder ones, the ones we can actually.
Parasite is one of the kinder ones.
You can own that title now, right?
Yeah, now though we're Oscar nominated also. So yes and no.
I think the problem is that I don't think people understand what is the purpose of reviewers and the purpose of reviews and the purpose of critics. I think that there is still a huge disconnect between what we're meant to do and what they think we're meant to do. My famous thing with Salman Khan always used to be, every time I bumped into him, he'd say, oh, but this film you gave 1 star to and it's made 300 crores. And I would keep telling him, that's not my job. Yeah. Earlier, it would only be the industry. And I don't know whether they didn't know what our job was or it suited them well to pretend that they didn't know what our job was. But now I notice it with just regular people. They just think that if a film did well and you didn't like it, then you're wrong. You're a bad critic. And of course, when they disagree with you, the first thing is, you're paid by someone or you're biased.
In your own mind, how do you define what it is that you do? Ankur?
I think for me, primarily, it is to, like I said, just unpack the politics of the film, whether it's gender politics, whether it's, the kind of, if it's taking a populist position at that point in time, and also to sort of dissect the film in a way that you look at it as a cultural product and what the film says about the times that we live in now. The technical craft, of course, is an essential part of it, but my focus always remains the broader overarching themes, because that's the subliminal effect what, the viewer goes back with, right? And oftentimes, for example, I think that, the first big film that came after India's Me Too movement is a Kabir Singh, right? Which worked in a big way. And what does that say about our culture that, India loves to hate its women?
Sucharita, I feel like Ankur is he's twice we've had a Kabir Singh reference. So I think he's pumping you up to go for it and let loose.
No, I think all of us have very traumatic memories from not that film, but the aftermath of the film and everything that happened, the audience reaction, the critical reaction, the debates around it, the television shows around it, primetime news TV talking about a film.
So let me just explain it for anybody. Essentially, Kabir Singh, which was the second or third highest grossing film of 2019, second highest grossing film of 2019.
Close to 300 crores, I think.
Close to 300 crores, starring Shahid Kapoor as this crazy, misogynistic stalker, who's...
Shahid Kapoor wouldn't agree with any of those descriptions.
Yes, I've seen your roundtable. So this film
That was very well done, by the way, Rajeev.
We're going to come to that. Essentially, this film went on to make loads of money, but particularly you, Sucharita, your review in particular went viral.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of your first reviews to hit over 1 million views as well, because you literally tore this movie apart. And you actually received like death threats, rape threats, all sorts of stuff because of a film review.
But that's continuous. That wasn't the first time that was happening. That happens to any female content creator on video on the Indian internet, regardless of whether she's talking about cinema or she's talking about politics or if she's talking about makeup. You know, that's standard, and you have to have a certain level of thick-skinnedness to be able to forget about that and move on. You know, a lot of people tell me that when it's a bad film, we're looking forward to Sucharita's reviews because she's gonna roast the film, and I'm like, that's not what I do. That's not what I like to say that I'm doing. I'm never roasting a film. I'm honestly really just being honest about it because I watch movies with a burning passion. I love cinema so much. I love storytelling, and I like Ankur said, I watch cinema in its social context, in the time that it is set in, whether it is now or historicals, and what the film is saying. And because of that, the content that I'm writing and then presenting on video becomes passionate, whether it is a good film or a bad film.
Can I ask a question? Does it sometimes suck the joy out of your life? I'm maybe because I'm doing it I've been doing it longer. There are times when I just go like, God, I'm just tired.
Only when it feels like you're, an uphill struggle trying to write about something that you really don't want to think about anymore. Something that you walked out of feeling like, okay, those are 3 hours of my life I'm never getting back. But then you're spending another 3 to 4 hours reading, doing research and writing about it. That's when it feels like, why
some films you're just way too excited to, sort of decode, break down, for example, Article 15 was a film that I think many liked, but I thought it was quite problematic.
That was your backlash from Kabir Singh, was the backlash you got to your review. But I guess, are you two in more of a compromising situation because you actually interview these stars regularly as well? And particularly for you, Rajeev, you had the lead actor of that film on your roundtable for his performance, but deep down you actually didn't like the film.
I didn't like the film, but I thought he was very, very, very convincing in that performance. It is a remake, so a lot of that performance was sort of echoing what Vijay Deverakonda had already done, but I did think it was a very compelling performance, and I didn't like the film, certainly. I don't think I hated it. I could see why it was attractive to some. I could see that. I could recognize that, and I think that I felt like that reflected in my review. It didn't matter to the director. I think he just decided that this was someone who hated my film and I'm going to go after him. But I think that's how it should be, and I think that you have to separate them. If I put Shahid on that table and at that round table and did not at all talk about what I felt about that film or did not raise the problems I had with that film, that would be a problem. That would feel like hypocrisy. The problem is mostly with pre-release interviews. What happens with those interviews is that you're listening to an actor talk about the place he's coming from when he's approaching a certain role or a certain character, and then you're watching the film, and even if that and that is weighing on you perhaps while you're watching that performance, and even if it weren't coming through to an objective mind, you're now looking at it from, that's a skill that you have to develop, to be able to listen to them talk about it and completely separate it when you're watching the film, which is why I don't enjoy too many pre-release interviews.
In an ideal world, there wouldn't be any pre-release interviews.
And unfortunately, those are the only ones they want to do. No one wants to talk to you
outside the country.
Unless it's a massive hit and you liked it.
In an ideal world, they would show you the film and then come in for an interview. They would show you a private screening of the film.
Also, with the pre-release, I think because of your conversations with the director, actors, you just have too much knowledge about what
about a film. That's true. I've stopped watching reviews. I've stopped watching trailers. Unless I have to interview that person. Like, for example, I didn't do interviews for Panga or Street Dancer. I haven't seen Panga. I did end up watching. I think I was just curious. Street Dancer, I wasn't. I didn't do the interview. So I haven't seen the trailer. I'm going in. You have a sense of what it must be because you've seen the first two, but I haven't seen a single trailer. But I just feel like between social media and between these interviews and between the trailer, way too much about a film going in.
particularly like a corporation like Yashraj Films, which is a well-respected banner, they have a blanket rule that no screenings before the first day, or you know, I know you all run in the morning to watch a 9 a.m. show and then write
8
your
a.m.
reviews.
sometimes. You know, unfortunately, also like Rajeev was saying a while back, there's so many people putting out reviews, and there's so much. So unfortunately, it is kind of a race against time. Even though I would have loved it if it weren't. But my attempt, just talking about myself, is if there's not been a press show that I've been invited to, or there's not a press show that's been organized, I try and watch the earliest show on Friday morning just so the review can be out as early as possible, because it does take me a couple of hours to sit down, put my thoughts together and write it. So even if I'm watching the first show Friday morning, my review's not going to be out before Friday night. So to try and do that, that's the attempt.
You would want, like, you know, I would need like a day at least to just mull
And
over
night,
the
you
film.
want at least sleep over
Sleep
it.
on it,
Yeah,
yeah.
sleep
Correct.
over it. We don't often have that. We
No.
frequently don't have that.
Don't have that
luxury.
luxury. But I have a question for you, Rajeev. Your videos are viral, especially your end of year conversations that you're having with actors and directors and everybody. Do you sometimes feel like maybe you want to focus more on that and like not review films anymore because that's giving you more?
Sometimes I do. I mean, sometimes I feel like
How do you deal with that?
I feel like you can't. Also, reviewing films is what allows you to do that, right? I mean, because everyone, if access is what your strength is, everyone has that today. I mean, really, everyone does. In my experience, the only time I get them when I want them is for the roundtables. And even now, it's become something that they want to be on. I'll say we've got to a place where nobody says no anymore.
Yeah.
The only time if we haven't got someone on that table, it's because they're not available.
Even Kangana?
Kangna actually said, you're right. Kangna's the only person who said she actually said earlier this year that I asked her earlier. She kind of said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that's fine. And she's the only one I didn't ask. As long as you don't feel that someone doesn't deserve to be on there, to be at that table, I think that we're doing it okay.
You've blurred the lines between stars and actors for the audience.
I mean, the first year that we did the Actors Roundtable, we had Ranbir and Amir and Irfan. And it was the year of Gangs of Wasseypur, and we got Nawaz on that.
Yeah.
Because and Nawaz himself was like, are you sure? And we're like, yes, you were extraordinary in the film, and we want to do that. I mean, this is not meant to be Coffee with Karan, where it's, four friends chatting or four superstars chatting. There is Coffee with Karan for that.
Is that another avenue for you to now piss off people who don't get invited to the table?
Nina Gupta was a bit offended, no? One
she
year?
was?
But it's funny because we
invited
reached out to
her.
her. We reached out to her, and she was on holiday.
So then there you go.
She doesn't communicate with her PR though, because they didn't tell her.
Actually, we reached out to her directly. We sent her messages. She was in the Maldives somewhere. And then I tried to sort of make up for it. And I mean, we did an interview with her, and she's lovely. Now you have publicists calling up and say, can this person be? And there is one particular actress who's reached out a few times, and she's lovely.
Oh,
But I don't
come
know.
on! No,
That's
way.
Rajiv's-
You have
chance.
walked
That's
into
Rajiv's
that.
blind item.
I would never. I would never. And it's not just one. I mean, there are others who.
Is she good, that actress, or does she think she's good?
Well, if she's not on it, if she hasn't been on it, she's not in that league just yet. She's a lovely lady, and she's working hard, and she'll be on it eventually. But it's also really a little awkward because this almost feels like one has actual power.
I was just about to say, it sounds like Rajeev has the power.
Yeah, this feels like some
I
sort of,
take back my
some.
previous
No.
answer. Rajeev Masand
The
has
Godfather, the real Godfather of Bollywood.
Rajeev
No,
Masand
I wish-
Photoshop
I
his
wish-
face on that.
But honestly, Rajiv, I think for a lot of stars and directors, actors, I think you're too big to say no to, and I completely disagree with the access bit, or maybe because my case is very unique. Like I report, and I interview, right? And a lot of my reporting is the intersection of the industry and the politics, and how it's slowly being co-opted by the establishment, which really makes them very uneasy.
Let's
Around
dig into what you do, Ankur, actually. For anybody who doesn't know properly, but your interviews are very descriptive, in-depth, almost investigation-like pieces where you ask them the questions they don't want to answer. You ask them about politics. You ask them about. There's a great interview I read of yours. I can't remember who it was with, but it was about the process of aging and feeling like you're outgrowing kind of. I really can't remember who it was with at this point, but it was about.
I think it was Shah Rukh Khan. I think
Maybe
he
it was
spoke
Shah Rukh,
about.
yeah. But it was a really beautifully written piece as well. Is it hard, firstly, convincing them to do those pieces?
I think it used to be a little harder, but as I've done more and more of those, there is like more sort of, citations that they can reference that, this is what I'm signing up for, which kind of like helps in getting them on board. And I think also, I mean, this is something I'll find out now that I'm doing like a more sort of video show. But just the intimacy of a conversation where there are no cameras or big mics, I think that plays a part in sort of, you know, them opening up more sort of intimately than they otherwise would like to. About drawing the line, I think it's just instinctive, right? Like, you know, when you've kind of reaching a place where they're getting like a bit uncomfortable, and maybe, you know, there could be some conversations that, you know, you don't want to touch, right? But I would still go to a point where I would have done my job of bringing it up and then respecting the choice of that person to, you know, like not take a position on it.
But are there a lot of people who say they don't want to do it?
I mean, to me, they just ghost me. Like, I could just ask them and
He
I would
speaks
not.
for everyone.
Do stars ignore you, Rajeev?
Yes, of course they do. I mean, well, you know, some of them know why I'm reaching out, because there's, you know, they're in the news for a certain reason and they know that that's going to come up. But he's right. They just ghost you. No one says no. Everyone's too polite and everyone's too scared of what. Everyone's too scared. I think journalists are scared of losing access. I think stars are scared of pissing off critics. Everyone's too scared of it. So no one says anything clearly. This is all this is the dance.
Yeah,
right?
like
everyone's sort of doing this, you know, I didn't get your message. Oh, we should get
yeah, sure. It's pinged up on your phone.
But you know, you make the same excuses. I've had an actor who's messaged me, and I don't want to do that interview, and I'm just not replying, and I feel really bad. I should say no, and this is someone who's sincere, but I don't want to do this interview. It doesn't move the needle. He's not going to answer the question I want to answer. I know it already. I don't want to do it, and I haven't replied in 4 days.
So how do you strike the balance of not compromising your relationships with these people?
I don't have, I think I'm glad you asked that. I don't think we have relationships with them. And I think that is something that one needs to wrap one's head around. I think having done it a while now, and having seen others who've done it longer, and seen a lot of people that I know, journalists who sort of believed they had
They're
power,
friends, yeah.
or believed that they were friends, and watch how that turned out. I think you're constantly reminded that these are not your friends.
You all live in the same bubble. You all interact with each other at similar venues and similar events.
Yes.
You know, from where I see it, you're all in arms with each other.
No,
No, it's not.
not at
It's
all.
not. I mean,
No,
it's not. I mean,
we don't get invited to the same events, and even if we do get invited to the same events, there's a very clear demarcation. Like we're media,
there's
and
the
this
inner
is the access
circle,
we
and
get,
then there are
and
the
that's the inner
journalist friends.
circle. You
Like
never
PC's
get invited
wedding?
to after parties.
You were at Priyanka's wedding.
I kind of gate crashed that reception.
No, but I want to say
Like,
to
I just
that,
want to see Nick
But I also
Jonas.
want to say to that, there were multiple receptions.
Yeah.
There was one that was for the
For
press.
the media.
Exclusively
There
for the
was-
press.
this was not
No.
this was not the
No, not the one I went to was the Bollywood
Oh, it was
one.
that. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I mean.
Okay,
She went to the
okay.
actual
No,
one.
I'll tell
Did
you,
you
I'll
go
tell
to
you
the?
how.
No, I'd go to any. Because I feel like they're obliged to call you. I mean, I know Deepika and Ranveer since I know them really well. And they
Yeah.
invited me to the press wedding, to the rest.
When you
I-
say you know
I
them
went
really
to
well,
the
would you say
Bollywood
you're
I know,
friends?
no. Friends as in, you know, I think we use the word friend very loosely.
Loosely,
I think I do too very often.
Yeah.
But I'm fully conscious and fully aware that does not extend beyond professional
Would
boundaries.
the term be you're friendly with?
I think that's the right term.
What about, like, I see with you, Sucharita, you are friendly with like Ayushmann Khurrana or Rajkumar Rao. These are people that you often interact with on social media. And obviously, like I said, I'm looking from London, I'm looking from a different gaze. But one would assume that are you friends with these people?
Again, with Rajkumar Rao or Ayushmann Khurrana, these are actors who've done good performances recently. So you would see me appreciating their performances on social media, and you would see me doing friendly back and forth as well. But it's not like we're hanging out and getting coffee and going out for dinner, double dates and things like that. It's like we've just been talking about. It's friendly. When Ayushmann does a bad film, I go out and I say that he did a bad film, and he doesn't retweet that tweet. That's it.
Yes,
I
but-
didn't enjoy Dreamgirl at all. I thought Dreamgirl was
Me
quite
too.
a terrible film, and that's what I said. I thought it was homophobic and all kinds of Islamophobic, and I said that, and he didn't retweet it, and which is fine, And when I say good things about Article 15 or even Shubh Mangal Zyada Savdhan, when I watch it, when it releases, he'll retweet that, and the same. That's true with every actor or actress.
What's the worst reaction you've received from somebody in the industry to a review of yours?
I don't think anybody publicly says anything. There's always the general oh, I don't read critics or I don't watch critics or everybody
Which
can
we
be
all
a
know is rubbish.
critic these days. Yeah, everybody's reading reviews. Trust you me. But publicly there's Kangana's sister says a lot of things, but it's on you how seriously you take
Has
that.
she said anything about you?
Yeah, all the time.
For which film?
For everything, like Manikarnika was a one big film. Which
You liked that one, no?
I liked Kangana. I did not like that film very much. I did like Judgmental Hai Kya, but then she also has issues with like other political stands and other things that she do, and the whole critic culture as whole.
Do you have to have a thick skin in this business and in this city? I think that, I come here for a 10-day window every couple of years.
And your soul
and
is
I'm
shattered.
traumatized when I go back. I'm like, get me out of here. Get me out of Jew. Get me out of
Oh my
Bandra.
God, I'm so sorry, Haroon.
No,
That's
I
really
love it.
tough
It's a real weird kind of love-hate relationship.
For me, it's different because for me, it's multifold. You have to have a bit of a thick skin, but that's also because of the kind of product I am creating and everything else that, because it's immediate, it's on video, it's on YouTube, you're a woman. So you have to have a thick skin for that, obviously, to be a content creator online. But yeah, because when I was doing radio, there was this one time, this one massive superstar walked in to do a post-release interview with some other RJs, not me. And I had really given that film a bad review because I did not enjoy that film at all. And you have a certain idea of how this superstar reacts to reviews, and you've heard from people. I hid under a table. I was like,
For real?
for real, I hid under a table.
I've done that. I've
Yeah.
sort of made sure I'm out of the way, not seen by.
I was in my
Please
studio.
teach me
Yeah.
these tricks.
I was in my
just bumped
studio.
into them
I was
head
live
first.
on the air, and the backup studio, which is across, as you would understand, they share.
Yeah.
So more often than not, they share a glass wall.
window.
And the backup studio, where the not live interview was being recorded, and he walks in, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I paused whatever I was doing. I put on a song, and I went under the console.
Oh my God.
Because I think I was about a year into doing this, and I was just
Still
terrified.
negotiating that new
I
space.
was terrified of how this person, is he going to get angry at me? Is he going to yell at me? But then now, few years down the line, you're like, whatever.
I think it comes with experience. I think that you can also be upset when because you can't understand why the other person can't understand it's just a job. But you do understand eventually that even the guy who's made the worst film has put in effort and tried to make a better film than he ended up making. So he's entirely justified in feeling hurt. But I think that hurt shouldn't last years or months. I think that if you're able to, you have to have some perspective a few months in. You should be able to look at a film with some distance and say, okay, they weren't entirely wrong, or okay, that's an opinion that's their honest response to my film, and okay, we've got to move
Everybody's
on.
entitled to their
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
You want to express yourself, please go right ahead, because that's what we're doing week
Yeah.
after week after week.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
expressing
actually not
ourselves.
offended when someone is rude about a review or if someone is cold.
I think
I feel
two
it's
things
alright.
happen. Like after a point, they just get around to it.
Yeah.
That if you show consistency in just speaking your mind, then they're like, okay, this is the person. He's honest. And sometimes they look forward to what you have to say, despite you having panned whatever film
Yeah.
they were in.
Have people
The other
responded back badly to your reviews ever? Like
I mean,
industry
like,
people?
so again, I think the culture in Bollywood is such, they will, like she said, they wouldn't publicly do it, but recently there was a film that came and it did pretty well, and it has this one actor who's suddenly become a star. And I hated the film, and I think most of us did. And
Which
it's so
one?
happy
Which
that
one?
you
There's
Which
come
so
out-
one?
many.
I'll tell you.
Which
But
one?
you
Come
Oh,
on.
I think I know.
The most awkward thing happened because I came out of Juhu PVR and he was just lurking around outside.
No, I know what you're talking
I
about
know
because
which one
I
you're
bumped
talking
into him
about. I
also
bumped into
outside.
that
Guys,
Juhu PVR.
our audience aren't going to know. You have
I
to
didn't
give...
hate that movie, so I was
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can you give me a clue?
So I was supposed to do like a profile piece on him eventually, which is something that we were in conversation with. And then I watched the film and I didn't like it and I wrote about it and I just didn't hear from his team after that. If I meet them, I cannot pretend to have liked
Yeah.
it. So I just say it like, dude, what the hell was this? Like, how'd you do it? I
Oh,
mean,
you
it
add
happened.
to it. I couldn't.
I
That's really
Kaisa
hard.
banaya gati
Yeah.
film?
Oh gosh, no.
Nikal. Also understand that the film reviews that somebody like Rajeev or me or Ankur are doing, if you say no to us and don't turn up for our event, that's not going to affect the
Yeah.
next film that
Yeah.
we talk about. It's not going to affect that. And that takes a certain time to build that kind of reputation, because some people have the other kind of reputation that if you say no to whatever, I mean, without naming any names, but then you're like, maybe they're not going to give you a very favorable review.
What do you do when you know a star is lying through their teeth about what their movie is going to be like? You know that what they say they stand for in reality is different to the films that they're willing to do on screen. How do you react to that?
But that's all of them. I don't think any of them.
Every
First of all, I don't think any of
single
them stand for anything, and not certainly, not certainly strongly enough to not do the film as a result.
To actually say no to something.
I just don't think that they do. I think that I think they see it as to. I also think to give them. To play the devil's advocate, I think they see them as two different things. In fact, it's, there'll be a Zoya Akhtar who'll say that I use my art to convey my politics and to convey what I feel. But I think for the mainstream stars, I think they see it as completely two different things. What I stand for is different, and my films are commercial. I make movies to make money,
which is indicative of like complete moral bankruptcy.
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
their part,
absolutely.
right? Like,
So how do you come to
We're
peace with
pandering.
that?
We're not challenging. We're
to a
pandering.
very populist idea, and like then
But
don't
like,
pretend
I also
to.
think that like a lot of these big celebrities are so insulated from the real world, like what the conversations are and what is the politics that's going on right now, what is the social situation. They don't actually realize that the messaging of their film is problematic to the place
Sucharita, I
where the
think they're
country
very
is
aware
in
that
right
because
now.
how do
see
you-
the incentive in doing it because
I
it's
have met
working at that
I have
point.
met celebrities in the recent past, without naming any names, who do not know like some of the biggest journalists who are doing some of the biggest news stories
I think
in the
both
country.
are true.
They just don't know who they are.
Is there a worry that you'll ever fall out of love with Bollywood?
I don't think so. I think for me it's about cinema and it's about the films that I'm watching, whether it
But the
is
films are
a Hindi
reflective.
film. It could be a Hindi film, it could be a Telugu film, it could be Malayali, Bengali, Punjabi, anything. It could be an English film, it could be a French film. It's about the film that I'm watching, and obviously it's about the country of origin and the politics of the film and the era that it is set in. I don't think I'm ever going to fall out of love with
I think
the
that is a fear. I think that is a very legitimate fear. I think that if the films don't rapidly improve, if we're not, look at the films that are coming out of other regions in India, and they're so much more superior. If our films don't improve, if also on some level, it's also about you do ask yourself if you're if you're sitting around and chatting and talking when you're chatting with actors, are these just a spineless lot?
I feel like Rajeev said quite early on, is they only talk to you when they want to talk to you, right?
That's completely
They
true.
realize that access is the commodity. Access is what you need.
Yeah.
Access is what everyone needs, and they realize they can just cut it off, and there goes your power. Any illusions of power that you might have, it just takes not responding to your message to remind you exactly where you fit in the
But you
pecking
reclaim
order.
that power in your round table.
I mean, well,
I'm just kidding.
Finally, then, what's the one thing you want to see change in Bollywood? Let's give it a time space of 2 years. I think that's a tangible amount of time. What's the one thing you'd like to see change? Sucharita?
I would really like for people to not take themselves so seriously, because at the end of the day, we're all a part of the entertainment industry together, and we all have a responsibility. Coming to your previous question, when you're putting out any content, any bit of content out there, you have to be aware of how many people it's reaching, how people are going to react to it in 2020, and what it is that you're saying. So if you stop taking yourself so seriously as the idea of you, and get out of your head a little bit and get into what it is that you're creating and the reason behind creating that, I would really like to see that a little bit more. That way I will not have to hide under my console and other tables when celebrities walk past.
Rajeev?
I'm going to answer that through the lens of what we do as reviewers. I hope that in the next few years, filmmakers and studios and anyone that's making films understands that to have critics respect your film and to have reviewers respect your film, you have to respect their job. Show us the movies a little bit in advance. Show us movies maybe 2 days before, so one can spend the time that is required to respect your film, and to think about it and to mull over it, and the thought that it requires to sort of soak it in and decide how I really genuinely feel about it. I hope that changes.
I feel that the film industry should really grow some moral stamina to really stand up to whatever's happening in the country right now, because I feel, 10 years down the line, when this sort of, whatever's happening has passed, there will be another generation that will ask you, what were you doing when, my country burned? And you'll have to answer.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out. I could have talked to you for hours, but you all have things to get on with. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who tuned in for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to listen back to it, then please go to BBC Sounds and subscribe and download this podcast now.
If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe.
and click the bell icon to keep up to date. For more great audio and video from the BBC, listen on Sounds, watch on iPlayer.